Red and blue lights in your mirrors used to mean a warning and a wave. In 2026, they can mean the end of your career before you finish your coffee. This year, federal enforcement on America's highways has reached levels no driver has ever seen. New laws signed in Washington, a nationwide license crackdown, and roadside inspections that pulled nearly 1 in 5 trucks out of service. Today, we are counting down the 10 biggest reasons truck drivers are getting stopped in 2026. Stick around, because number one has already racked up more than 18,000 violations at the roadside, and every single failure parks the truck on the spot. Let's roll. Before we hit the list, understand what changed. For decades, a roadside inspection was mostly about the truck. Bad brakes, bald tires, a cracked windshield. In 2026, the government flipped the script. The driver in the seat is now under more scrutiny than the machine underneath him. Two new federal actions this year alone have removed tens of thousands of drivers from the road, and inspectors at every weigh station from Texas to Ohio have new orders. And it isn't just the big blitz weeks anymore. The technology doing the checking runs every day of the year, at highway speed, whether you ever see a trooper or not. So whether you have been driving for 30 years or you are just watching from the couch, this list explains why the interstate feels different this year. Number 10. The little lights that get you noticed. It sounds almost too simple, but the fastest way to meet a state trooper in 2026 is still a burned-out marker light on your trailer. Officers call it probable cause on wheels. One dead clearance light, a cracked lens, a dangling mud flap, or an obscured license plate gives an inspector every legal reason to pull you into the inspection bay. And once you are in that bay, the stop is never just about the light. The inspector runs the full 37-step Level 1 inspection, checking your logs, your license, your brakes, and your load. Veteran drivers know the old saying, they stop you for the light, but they write you up for everything else. With automated camera systems now scanning trucks as they roll past weigh stations, that flickering bulb gets spotted from a quarter-mile away. There is a flip side, though. Pass a Level 1 inspection clean, and the inspector puts a CVSA decal on your windshield, good for up to 3 months. That sticker tells the next officer your rig already survived the toughest check on the road, and it is the closest thing to a hall pass this industry has. Drivers who walk around their truck every morning earn them. Drivers who don't, feed the inspection bays. A $2 light bulb has become the cheapest insurance policy in trucking. But if a light bulb can get you stopped, what you do with your right foot can get you fined into next month. Number 9. Speeding with a twist nobody expected. For years, the industry braced for a federal speed limiter mandate that would electronically cap every heavy truck in America. Then, in July of 2025, Washington quietly withdrew the proposal. No federal limiter, no cap, nothing. Drivers celebrated. But state enforcement agencies took that as a starting gun. With no electronic governor doing the work, troopers in states like Ohio, Virginia, and Texas ramped up radar patrols targeting commercial vehicles specifically. Speeding remains one of the most cited moving violations for trucks, and in most states, a commercial driver faces stiffer penalties than the four-wheeler doing the exact same speed next to him. 15 over in a work zone can mean a fine in the hundreds, points against a CDL, and a black mark on a safety score that follows a driver to every future employer. And the calendar makes it worse. Operation Safe Driver Week runs in mid-July, a full enforcement campaign aimed squarely at risky driving behaviors, with speeding at the top of the list. During that week, patrols multiply and unmarked units work the left lane. Every citation lands in the CSA system, dragging down the carrier's score, raising insurance premiums, and moving that driver's name up the list for the next inspection. The irony is thick. The government decided not to slow trucks down automatically, then doubled the manpower to catch the ones who didn't slow themselves down. But at least a speeding ticket lets you keep driving. This next one can chain your truck to the shoulder. Number 8. Cargo securement, the official target of 2026. Every May, the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance runs its International Road Check, a 72-hour inspection blitz across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. This year, from May 12th to the 14th, inspectors were given a specific vehicle focus, and it was cargo securement. The numbers explain why. In 2025, more than 18,000 violations were written for cargo that wasn't secured against leaking, spilling, blowing off, or falling onto the highway. Flatbed drivers hauling lumber, steel coils, and machinery took the brunt of it. And inspectors aren't just counting straps anymore. They are checking for frayed webbing, rusted chains, and cracked anchor points. A tie-down that looks fine from the cab but shows wear up close is an automatic out-of-service condition. The straps are only half the story, too. Another 16,000 violations last year were written for unsecured vehicle components and dunnage. A spare tire that isn't chained down, a loose tarp, a dunnage board rattling around the deck. Inspectors count all of it, because at 70 miles an hour, a flying 2x4 doesn't care that it wasn't the cargo. The rule of thumb is that your tie-downs must handle at least half the weight of the load. But in 2026, condition matters as much as math. One degraded strap on a load of steel, and that truck isn't moving until it's fixed. Yet even with all that attention on cargo, it still wasn't the number one thing grounding trucks this year. Number 7. Brakes, the violation that never goes away. Cargo may have been the official focus, but brakes remain the undisputed king of out-of-service orders. In the most recent road check data, brake system violations alone accounted for roughly a quarter of every vehicle placed out of service, and when you add in trucks failing the 20% defective brake standard, brake problems made up more than 40% of all out-of-service findings. Nearly half of every truck grounded in America is grounded because it can't stop properly. Air leaks, worn pads, out-of-adjustment slack adjusters, and severed brake hoses show up in inspection bays every single day. One inspection in Pennsylvania this year found 14 separate out-of-service conditions on a single rig, including catastrophic air leaks and steering damage. And brakes get their own dedicated week too. Brake safety. Week runs at the end of August, 7 straight days when inspectors do almost nothing but crawl under trucks with a flashlight and a gauge, and there is no talking your way out of what they find down there. Fleets that stretch maintenance intervals to save a few dollars learn quickly that a violation, a tow bill, and a stranded load cost far more than the shop visit they skipped. For an 80,000-pound vehicle coming down a mountain grade, brakes are the whole ball game, which makes it strange that the next reason on our list is something drivers do voluntarily, with one hand, at 70 miles an hour. Number 6. The phone in your hand. The federal handheld phone ban for commercial drivers has been on the books for years, but 2026 enforcement looks completely different. Troopers now run elevated patrol vehicles and unmarked SUVs that sit level with a truck cab, looking straight through the window. Some states have deployed camera systems that photograph drivers through the windshield. Get caught holding a phone while driving a commercial vehicle, and you're looking at a fine that can reach nearly $3,000 for repeat offenses, plus a serious violation on your record. 2 of those within 3 years, and a driver faces disqualification. What changed this year is the evidence. With dash cams and roadside cameras everywhere, the ticket rarely comes down to a driver's word against an officer's anymore. There's a photo. And to be clear about where the line actually sits, a phone mounted in a cradle is legal, voice commands are legal, and a single button pressed to answer is legal. Reaching for the device, holding it to your ear, or typing out a message is not. The rule is about the hand, not the phone. And a phone in the palm at highway speed has become one of the easiest tickets in America to write. And if you're finding this breakdown useful, hit that subscribe button, because we cover the trucking world every week. And this is a year nobody in the industry can afford to ignore. Now, from the phone in your hand to the card in your wallet. Number 5, the medical card trap. Every commercial driver needs a valid medical certificate from a certified examiner, and in 2026, the paperwork chase became automated. 30 years ago, a med card lived in your wallet, and the only person who ever saw it was a trooper with a flashlight. Now, medical examiners transmit results electronically straight to the Federal Registry and on to state licensing agencies. That sounds convenient until you realize what it means. The moment a med card expires, the state computer knows, and many states automatically downgrade the CDL without so much as a phone call. Drivers have been pulled over for a routine check, handed their license back, and informed they've technically been driving without commercial privileges for weeks. Blood pressure readings, sleep apnea compliance, and expired certificates are quietly sidelining experienced drivers every month. The cruel part is that many of these drivers did nothing wrong behind the wheel. A missed renewal date or a paperwork glitch between the examiner and the state, and a spotless 30-year career shows up in the system as an invalid license. And here is the part that stings. Get stopped while that downgrade is active, and the citation isn't for an expired card. It's written as operating a commercial vehicle without a valid CDL, a violation serious enough to park the truck on the spot and put the carrier on the hook right alongside the driver. Smart drivers now treat their med card date like a delivery appointment because the system no longer forgives forgetfulness. But a paperwork downgrade is gentle compared to the database that's ending careers at number 4. Number 4. The clearinghouse comes for its list. The Federal Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse has been collecting names for years, logging every failed test and every refusal. What's different now is what happens next. Under the rules fully enforced across the states, any driver listed as prohibited gets an automatic CDL downgrade. The license itself is canceled at the state level, and in 2026, roadside technology closed the loop. License plate readers and inspection software flag those trucks instantly. A driver who failed a random test months ago and kept quietly driving isn't gambling against a paper file anymore. He's gambling against a live database connected to every scale house in the country. Tens of thousands of drivers currently sit in prohibited status, and a significant share never started the return to duty process at all. Getting off the list is possible, but it is a process. An evaluation with a substance abuse professional, treatment or education, a negative return to duty test, and then follow-up testing that can run for years afterward. Thousands of drivers have come back through that door, and the industry welcomes them. But there is no shortcut around it, and no state will hand the license back until it's done. Some walked away from the industry instead. Others rolled the dice and kept driving, and those are the ones getting arrested at weigh stations this year, because in many states, operating a commercial vehicle while prohibited means handcuffs, not a citation. The message from enforcement is simple. The list is real, the computer checks it, and the days of slipping through the cracks are over. Speaking of computers, the little box on your dashboard just became the star witness against you. Number 3. Your ELD is talking to the inspectors. Electronic logging devices were sold to the industry as a way to end logbook disputes forever. Instead, in 2026, they became the centerpiece of the biggest driver enforcement push of the year. The CVSA made ELD tampering, falsification, and manipulation the official driver focus of this year's road check, and the reason is in the data. Falsified records of duty status was the second most cited driver violation in North America last year, with more than 58,000 violations written. 5 of the top 10 driver violations were tied to hours of service or the devices themselves. Inspectors are now trained to spot ghost co-drivers, unassigned driving time, and edits made to hide hours behind the wheel. They compare fuel receipts and toll records against the log, and when the story doesn't match, the driver goes out of service for 10 hours or more on the spot. They also expect the data on demand. When an inspector requests a transfer, the driver has to send the file electronically right there at the window, and fumbling with a device you never learned to operate reads exactly the same as hiding something. Personal conveyance is under the microscope too, because logging a loaded commercial move as personal use is one of the oldest tricks in the book, and it has become one of the easiest to catch. And there's a second trap inside this one. The government has been decertifying ELD models that don't meet the rules, yanking several devices off the approved list this year with a hard deadline in April to replace them. Drivers running a decertified box are treated as having no log at all, The device that was supposed to protect drivers is now the first thing an inspector plugs into. But as big as the ELD crackdown is, the last two reasons on this list are on another level entirely, because they aren't about how you drive. They're about who's allowed to drive at all. Number 2. The Non-domiciled CDL crackdown. In February of 2026, the federal government published a rule called Restoring Integrity to the Issuance of Non-domiciled Commercial Driver's Licenses, and it took effect on March 16th. In plain English, it dramatically restricts which foreign drivers can hold an American CDL. Eligibility is now limited to a handful of specific work visa categories. States must verify immigration status before issuing, and the license expires the moment the underlying visa does. No more licenses that outlive the paperwork behind them. The mechanics are strict. Every applicant gets run through the federal immigration database. The license can't be issued for more than 1 year, and it can never outlast the driver's federal arrival record. Renewal means fresh documents every single time. The fallout has been immediate. A nationwide audit found widespread problems with how states were issuing these licenses. North Carolina was warned about federal funding over improperly issued credentials, and California alone was ordered to invalidate roughly 17,000 of them. Federal estimates suggest the vast majority of the roughly 200,000 non-domiciled CDL holders will not qualify under the new standard as their licenses come up for renewal. At the roadside, that means inspectors are now checking visa documents and license classifications they never used to look at. Insurance companies have piled on too, with some policies now excluding crashes involving improperly licensed drivers. The rule is already being fought in federal court, but as of right now, it is the law of the road. Yet even this isn't the biggest reason trucks are getting stopped in 2026. That belongs to a rule that's been on the books for decades and just grew teeth. Number 1. The English test at the roadside. The regulation has existed since the era of paper maps. A commercial driver must be able to read and speak English well enough to understand road signs, talk with the public, and respond to officials. For years, it was barely enforced. Then came an executive order, strict enforcement starting in June of 2025, and finally, in February of 2026, the president signed legislation writing it into federal law. English language proficiency is now a formal out-of-service condition, printed right into the national inspection criteria. Fail it at the roadside, and the truck stops moving immediately. The test itself has 2 parts. First, a structured interview, where the inspector asks about the trip, the load, and the paperwork, all in English, with translation apps strictly forbidden. Second, a highway sign recognition test, where the driver must identify common signs like lane closures, weight limits, and warnings. There is one carve-out worth knowing. Drivers working the commercial zones along the southern border can still be cited, but under current guidance, they generally are not placed out of service inside those zones. Since enforcement began, more than 18,000 English violations have been written at the roadside, and thousands of drivers have been ordered out of service on the spot. Every failure means a stranded load, a scrambling carrier, and a black mark that follows the driver. And as of the April edition of the out-of-service criteria, the English standard is printed in the book itself, which means this isn't a memo anymore. It's permanent. Combined with the CDL crackdown at number 2, analysts project these enforcement actions could remove hundreds of thousands of drivers from the American workforce over the next few years. That is why this sits at number 1. It's not just a traffic stop. It's reshaping who drives America's freight. Step back and look at the whole list, and a pattern jumps out. Lights, speed, straps, and brakes will always get trucks stopped. But 2026 marks the year enforcement moved from the machine to the man. The medical registry, the clearinghouse, the ELD, the license itself. Everything is connected to a database now, and every database is connected to the officer walking up to your window. For the drivers who keep their equipment tight, their logs honest, and their paperwork current, there's actually good news buried in here. Fewer trucks on the road means better rates and steadier freight for the ones still rolling. The professionals win in a year like this. It has happened before, too. Every time enforcement tightens, the drivers who treat this job like a profession come out the other side with fuller trailers and better paychecks, while the corner cutters wash out. So tell me in the comments, which of these 10 surprised you the most? And if you're out there driving right now, what are you seeing at the scales? If this video kept you informed, hit that like button and subscribe, because the rules of the road are changing faster than ever, and we'll be here every week breaking down what it means for the men and women behind the wheel. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and I'll see you on the next road.